Insulin resistance is when your body is unable to use that particular insulin that you have, either the one that you have in your body or the one that you're injecting. You will usually find this in people who are overweight, okay? So there is insulin being produced, but can it reach to and attach to the surface where it's needed? No. There is a fat barrier. That is one. In pregnancy, for example, we have a surge of hormones, all right? So those hormones are resistant to insulin. They actually work against the insulin.
Oh, I didn't expect that to be sort of topic. But in regard to that, what is the relationship between obesity and diabetes? Is it automatic that when you see an obese person, is it automatically that she's a type 2?
No, not all obese people are type 2, and not all type 2s are obese, okay? But it puts them at a higher risk of diabetes. Why? The moment you have that extra fat, okay, and your body is not able to attach the insulin to the part that it is needed, what does it mean? It means that you are not able to, your body will be forced to produce so much insulin to keep up. If you have ever slaughtered a goat or chicken that is very, very huge, what do you see under the organs? Fat. A lot of fat, okay? So then the body is being told, give us insulin. But the insulin that is being produced is not reaching where it is needed. There is over-insulinization. The higher the insulin, the more the fat accumulation. And so the insulin making cells will decide, you know what, we are tired. We are giving you 1,000 units, you're only using 500. It seems like you need the 500. But what is the goal? They actually need much more than that. All right. So usually when you are obese, you are at a higher risk of insulin resistance, which is part of the metabolic syndrome, the high blood pressure, the heart disease, and diabetes. And obesity is part of it.
And another one,
yes.
What are the dangers of too much insulin in your body? Like
over-insulinization.
Oh, yes, yes. What are the dangers?
You will eat more. You will grow more.
There is someone who does a question there. You can take insulin. Take much insulin.
And usually that's the mixed insulin.
Yes. At a preferred time of say 15 minutes. You take an insulin, you eat it, but then when you take your sugar, they still high. You take insulin again. Meaning there is much insulin in your body. Because over time I've been adjusting my insulin.
What insulin are you on?
I'm on mixed,
human mixed insulin. Yes.
Since being diagnosed, I've been adjusting my units, increasing my units. Right now I'm doing 28 units.
28 and what?
Yes, and I'm looking forward to increasing. Yeah?
28 and what? 28 and what?
28 and 18. Yes.
28 and 18. Yes. So the higher, the more hungrier, the more food you will eat, and soon, unless you're really working out, we will just start seeing you changing clothes and, you know,
the reason is
and you will create resistance as well. You probably will not even increase so much, but you create resistance. The more insulin you have, the more resistance you create. So we keep going. If I was the person following you up, I would actually look at it. What requirements are you getting right now? How much food are you eating? And try to take you back on the same dose on a basal bolus, basal insulin and rapid acting insulins, and see. And then we can titrate it down. Okay. Yeah. Mixed insulins are usually very good with type 2 diabetics because they also produce insulin on their own. Wanakuanga nayo. Nona. But wewe mwenye hauna, the best would be to keep you on something which mimics what your body would have done. But I understand there are constraints to it. But sometimes when we look at those constraints, we probably want to say that vis-a-vis, when I am 30, now I have complications of diabetes. What is good? Would I just spend slightly more, maybe 600 more, and prevent going into kidney failure? Or I save the 600, and when I get into kidney failure, dialysis cannot be afforded. And then I can't work. So it's a hard decision, but sometimes you need to be taken through that so that we understand why we do the things that we do. If it was me, and I was probably the government, and I could afford, I would put all kids and all type 1s on the basal bolus dose. In fact, if I had much more money, I would put all my kids on the pump, insulin pump, so that you're not walking around with some energy spare too. Yes.
I need you to comment on this.
And that was the last question. Yes.
Okay, there is a research yenye inaonyesha mtu mwenye ameconsume maziwa like the whole milk, like direct from the cow for a long period of time, the high chances ya kupata diabetes, especially inherited.
Type 1.
By 65%.
Yes, I know that. I know that research, and I also know another research which says introductions of cow milk to children before the age of 1 actually exposes them to risk of type 1 diabetes. There's all that. I don't want to say it's because your parents gave you milk. Yes and no, but yes, it has been linked with a higher risk of type 1 diabetes. Also, type 1 diabetes has been linked with it's higher in regions that are pretty much cold, okay, you know, places which are very, very cold, the highlands and all that. And I don't want to take that research here because it might just be true. And yeah, so all those studies, they help us to be able to understand why things happen and probably look at a way of addressing it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you and then you.
Okay, there are times when, especially for students, you may have a class in the morning and you are not ready to take breakfast. So you need
Why?
to rush to class.
Because there's no appetite.
No,
You're also on
need to
mixed
rush to
ed.
class. Yes. So you go to class, maybe you've injected or not.
You will get a hypo. And if you don't inject, you're going to get a hyper. So you have to make that sacrifice to inject and eat. Or to inject, wait, carry the food and go with it.
And there's also a time when you don't feel like eating, so you will take less. Does that mean you reduce your dose?
It's a bit difficult with a mixed insulin. You see, because it's a fixed dose. So when you're reducing, what are you reducing? For example, how many units do you take in the morning?
25.
25. Yeah. So if you reduce, how much are you reducing and why?
Because I'm not going to eat the same amount of food.
But you see, with mixed insulins, we are probably not even doing carb count. Yeah. So that's the challenge.
So I just have to eat.
You'll just inject and eat. You just have to eat and carry the food with you so that half an hour later you're able to eat. Otherwise, you go into basal bolus. Inject when you're eating.
Okay, my concern was on adjusting the amount of
the food.
Yeah, of medication.
So it is not very correct with mixed insulin. The adjusting of the dose with a mixed insulin confuses it. Then we end up with what he was talking about, over-insulinization. And then now you have resistance because of that. There's too much insulin hanging around in the body. So when you don't need a hypo, you chap a very bad hypo. When you need the sugar to be low, you go so high because you're not on a consistent dose. Yeah. So mixed insulins are very tricky to work with, especially because you're not producing any insulin at all. Yeah.
So I have 2 questions. One.
Yes. Those are the last ones. So that I also don't fall into a hypo.
Okay. 2 things. First, please elaborate on insulin and weight, the amount of units you take and your weight. Because I saw someone asking about that question in the group. Okay, if let's say, for example, I'm 65 kgs. I take 28 plus 14. 34.
42 or something like that.
So if I'm 65 kgs, is 42 mingi, overdose, or equal to sour?
So first of all, your insulin is calculated on what type are you, what is your age, what are the parameters that we have, what sugars are we seeing, and what do we want to correct, and then what is your weight. That's how we start. Then it is taken up or it is taken down, depending on a person. So all of us can never be on the same insulin amount. And whereas for you 42 might have been the correct dose, for somebody else that might be too high and it's causing them hypoglycemia, or for somebody else that is too low and they're having high sugars. So very individualized. And all parameters are considered. It's not just about, oh, this is your weight, this is your insulin. No.
And then
Second question.
the other question, I'm on mixed ad, but sometimes, okay, nikikosa kutake insulin, the sugars go up vibaya. Ata, let's say morning, I forget or I intentionally skip my morning medication, so the sugars will be very high. And sometimes when I take my shots, the insulin, the sugars will be very low.
Yeah. So that's what I was trying to explain. The dose adjustment with a mixed insulin is being between a rock and a hard place. Because you are adjusting how much, for what reason? Because it is not relating directly to the carbohydrates that are being eaten. You understand? Yeah. So that's the only challenge we have. So you don't take it, the sugars are too high. You take it, the sugars are too low. So no forgetting. Eh? See, when you go out, mommy always gives you a phone to go with it. You have a phone? Ah, she carries her phone. Yeah, so she has to carry that. Most pens are smaller than a phone, lighter than a phone. Yeah. Okay? Great. I think good enough. The rest will be off the camera. And don't give up this journey. The kids grow to be everything they want. If you are a young person, don't hide it. The more people know about it around you, the better for them. Because they know what to do when they need to do it. And then I am not seeing people with medical IDs. I know it feels like you're being discriminated. Or you have. It feels like you're being discriminated upon. Trust me, it is not. The day there is a fracas somewhere in town or where you are, that will be the difference between you staying alive and you going. Because even if it's a thief, you've dropped down and you've fainted and somebody comes to you, they want to steal, trust me, that will attract their attention. And then as they steal, they will remember, a diabetic has fallen down, probably they have low sugar, let me give a sweet. Okay? Or somebody else who's passing will be able to see that and help you. But if you don't have, you have that smell, what she described as an alcoholic smell in your mouth because your ketones are high, they'll pass you and say you are drunk. But if they see that, it will hit them.
You mean alcohol blower can come?
No, it will not detect. No. No, it will not. It's just a smell. All right. Sawa. Asanteni sana and have yourselves a good afternoon. I have enjoyed this company and I hope we will do it over and over again. Next time we'll go bowling, Sindio?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Asanteni sana.
Thank you. Can we appreciate Betty? Thank you. Hey. All right.